Hey friend, welcome back to more Microsoft Flight Simulator. My name is Tobel, and welcome also to On Air Company Manager, our virtual airline of choice. So last episode we started Odin Airlines, made a little tiny bit of money, and we do have, or at least we're renting, a Bonanza G36. That's the flight or the aircraft we've done a couple of flights in so far, and we were talking at the last episode about maybe picking a different aircraft because we do have the money right now. Now we can't, of course, buy a plane, especially the newer turboprops, but we might be able to rent a turboprop. So let's see if we can get a bit of a longer flight going. We're going to search for a single engine turboprop, and we're going to filter by Microsoft Flight Simulator, and specifically we're going to be looking for the TBM. Now, I want to choose the TBM 930 over the Cessna Grand Caravan, mostly because I love how the TBM performs, as well as how good the TBM looks. So I mean, just look at the difference here between the Cessna 208 and the TBM. Now the Cessna, I will say, is a workhorse. It can carry about twice as much as the TBM 930, but it's not going to get you there quite as fast. The interesting part about the TBM, from what I understand, the higher up you go, the faster your trip is going to be, and therefore the more fuel efficient, because you're still using the same gallons per hour as you would be at a lower altitude. And if we take a look over at Firefox here, I've got the TBM 930 Essentials Guide, which is actually kind of cool. And it's really fun that you can look at this information, and most of the hard and fast statistics are going to be the same. So for example, the working ceiling in the TBM 930 is about 31,000 feet, which is really, really high for a very small general aviation aircraft. I don't know if this still fits into the general aviation category. I think it does. Look at all the fancy configurations. Look, you can put a toilet in here. You could basically have a party inside of this thing. It is absolutely awesome. So we've got a ceiling of about 31,000 feet, a range, wow, a range of 1,700. Really? That's pretty long. I think 1,200. I kind of think that our range in the game, oh, it is 1,700. Maybe I'm getting that backwards with what we were just flying. I think that's actually the case. So we were just flying the G36, and the G36 is about just under 1,000 nautical miles. So yeah, the TBM 930 has an exceptional range, and I am really excited to try it out. So let's hop back over to On Air Company Manager. We're searching for a TBM 930 just anywhere near KORS, which is our current home airport. Nothing too fancy out of KORS, and we'll sort by distance to see what's relatively close. So we've got a pretty newish quality aircraft, so only 9,000 flight hours so far. I guess I could sort by hours, and we will have to go wherever this aircraft is. We're not going to get a free teleport. There is a thing though, I should say, you can move your employee. So if you buy or rent a plane and you don't want to necessarily fly there, we should be able to go under our employee tree, manage our employee, and then transport them from point A to point B. And I think it's going to take real world time. So maybe if you're going to bed or you're done for the game for a few hours and you need to move your pilot, then yeah, have them take, commercial airline or bus or what have you in order to get from point A to point B. But anyways, taking another look here at the single engine. Now, I don't want to go with the twin engine just yet. I think this will be a fun step up for us. We'll go with the 930 first, and then we might look at the King Air. Now, the King Air is going to be a really big step up, so I think the TBM is going to be a nice intermediary. So we have a couple of airports here relatively close by. KBFI is Boeing King County, which is just outside of Seattle. Renton Municipal, I have no idea what 11S is. Auburn Academy, Olympia Regional. Now, what I'm actually looking at here is the size rating of some of these airports, because the size rating is telling you obviously how big the airport is. A size 4 airport is just under a an international airport. So JFK, LAX, that's going to be your size 5 airport. A size 4 airport is a very big, respectable airport. What that means is that more than likely, once we get to KBFI, we're actually going to find quite a few jobs available to us. So let's go ahead and go to the details of this aircraft. As you can see, to buy it outright would be $390K. We're not going to spend that much up front. We're going to go ahead and just rent it for $7,300. That seems like a pretty legitimate option here. So the minimum is going to be $730 per hour. The minimum that we have to pay down is going to be $7,300, which is we get back at the end of the rental. So there we go, easy as can be. We do have to take a check ride though in the TBM 930. So we're going to have to fly down over to just outside of Seattle. So I wanted to take a look at jobs real quick to see if there are any jobs we could take from our home airport down to, I think it's KBFI, if I remember right, Boeing King County. Unfortunately, there's no runs that we can do. This one is a two-parter, which would actually be too much cargo anyways, and there's nothing else that's going down in this direction. So no big deal, honestly. What I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and just hop down in our current aircraft. I'm going to go down to KBFI, switch planes, and then I'll talk about a check ride for just a bit. And then we're going to look for a very high-paying, fun, long trip. All right, so we've arrived at KBFI. So we have our G36 and our TBM 930. So real quick, I'm going to hop into the 930. We're going to take a brief look around before we start this check ride. I'm going to talk a little bit about what a check ride is, and then we're going to look for a new job with this new aircraft. Now, with the G36, though, we still could do some stuff with it. We could actually hire our first employee if we wanted to and have them do a bunch of cargo runs here locally near Seattle. It kind of is up to us at this point, and we've got the money. We've already got the plane, so maybe we'll hire an employee in the next episode. But for now, let's go ahead and take the TBM out in a check ride. All right, so welcome to the inside of the TBM 930, super high tech, very heavy on the electrical navigation type of stuff. Our virtual airline program, On-Air Company Manager, is going to talk through the simulator and give us different commands. So for example, right now it's telling us to go taxi to the runway and take off. It's going to tell us to do stuff like climb to a certain altitude, maybe go to a heading, and once you get to that heading, it'll have you just do a couple of other general instructions. One of them might be slow down as much as safe as possible to minimum safe cruise speed, and then do a 360 without losing altitude. So it's kind of fun. It gives you a chance to get more familiar with the aircraft, and it really doesn't take all that long, especially not with the TBM, because this thing can climb so quickly and get to where it needs to go so fast that you're really not going to struggle with climbing like it would take a while maybe in the C208 Cessna, rather, the Grand Caravan. It takes a hot minute. Now, the TBM is kind of complex. Thankfully, Microsoft Flight Simulator or the company themselves, TBM, has developed a full checklist here that will take you through the entire procedure of doing a startup, an inspection, a startup, and everything that you need to do. Now, I'm going to try to wing it real quick, just for funsies. We are going to hide the yoke here and take a look at a couple of things. Now, some things I'm not really going to go all the way into, like, for example, you're supposed to wait a certain amount of time and get some measurements. We'll make sure the plane doesn't completely explode. But by and large, I think I'm okay with kind of skipping a few things. So first things first, we're going to move the crash bar up. We're going to bring the battery and the generator back off again to on. Generator to... Why can't I hit this other generator button? Is this the other? There we go. There is a way to view these panels specifically, though. I'm going to go ahead and cancel the master warning so it stops beeping at us. All right, and as you can tell, the navigation screens are now up and running. We have a few more things that we need to hit. So I believe we do want to eventually use our AP, so we'll turn autopilot on. I don't know what this thing is here. This ELT, Emergency Landing System. Is this like a parachute? Can I just flip this? Okay. I really want to flip it just to see what happens, but I won't. I believe the aux boost pump is related to fuel, but I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. We'll turn on the starter. We've already flipped on the lights. Now, really, sometimes you can just go through the list of warnings and get a feel for what's going on. Now, this aircraft, interestingly, has this high-low idle setting, as well as the feather setting. I'm actually not sure how to toggle the feather. I believe in the appropriate spin-up phase, you're supposed to wait for a few minutes to see if the NG values come up, if the heat comes up, and different things like that. I wonder if we're supposed to go... I think we're supposed to go up a tiny notch on the throttle. Low idle. And we're supposed to wait at low idle, I think, for a bit to make sure the temperature gets spun up. Again, like I said, it's in the checklist. I'm not going to get exactly 100% because to me, some of that stuff is a little bit tedious. The nice part is that there is an autocomplete page where the AI will do everything for you and get everything started up. So we're going to go ahead and bring our propellers to high idle. Make sure that everything is spun up nicely. We are going to go into the red there, I think. So we got to be a little bit careful that the heat doesn't build up too much. We're going to come over to 0 throttle. That's going to bring the temperature back down. And it's interesting. Yeah, it does go into this weird like idle phase on the right side. But yeah, I still don't know how to trigger the feather part. I've seen it done in testing, but I'm not entirely sure how to do it here. So we have a couple more things. Bleed off. Bleed, I believe, is the pressurization setting. We're going to go ahead and toggle that over to auto. Is that not what we're supposed to do? Max, maybe? Max differential, auto select. Auto select, that's what it has on there, but maybe I've got auto on the ignition. Let's turn the ignition off, I think. Auto select ignition. I don't think we need to have ignition on. Okay. It still says auto select, so something isn't quite set accurately, and I'm not entirely sure which one that is. I'll let this hang out for a minute to see if maybe there's one more thing that I completely forgot. But we do have the pitot heater on. Now the pitot, by the way, is a little tiny tube that normally sticks out the front bottom of the aircraft, and it has sensors on it, or it has sensors as part of the system that allows your aircraft to measure things like your wind speed and stuff like that. And so the pitot heat is actually one of the more critical things on your aircraft because it prevents that from flying. So, you know, slightly important stuff. Okay, I think I found it. I believe auto select is actually this option right here. Yes, so that disappeared. This will actually automatically select which tank we use during our flight. So that way, if you have your fuel in different wings, of course, or different storage tanks, it'll equally start to drain down the fuel. So you won't have any issues where you'll run out of fuel mid-flight, kind of like you would experience if you're in the G36. I think that one, you were supposed to flip that over manually, but I think we're good to go. We've got everything all set. We really don't have any navigation data because we are going to be flying around here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a flight out of here, and I'm going to go ahead and start the check ride. It may change the time on me, so let me just go ahead. Oh, we've already started the check ride. So I think all I have to do is taxi and take off. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take care of this check ride. I'll spend more time, of course, in the TBM 930 in the next flight, whatever our first cargo run is. But I did want to share with you a little bit of this experience here of kind of getting into the TBM and getting used to it a little bit. It was a good looking plane though. Absolutely gorgeous. This thing is a powerhouse in terms of its ability to climb and its cruise performance. I'm really excited. I don't actually know if I should be going out this way, and I actually can't use my radio for some reason. Either it's bugged out or it's because they're waiting on me to take off. So I'm going to go ahead and take off, and we'll see what the instructions are for my check ride. I'm not really going to record that part, but we are flying near Seattle, so if I get any really beautiful shots there, I might show off. All right, so the check ride is pretty much all set to go. All I have to do at this point is land, so I'm kind of approaching final here at KBFI, and I wanted to take a quick peek over at downtown Seattle. Now, you'll notice that there's a few discrepancies in the middle distance, and this is kind of interesting because I have pretty much the highest setting possible in graphics. I'm kind of curious sometimes as to what causes some things to load up, and obviously there are some weird elevation things here and there. And I think when we start to get the really high quality texture packs that come with a lot of the expansion type of things in Microsoft Flight Simulator, then we're really going to see some really high quality areas. But right now you can see that there's some really weird oddities. There's a lot of pyramids that have cropped up in Seattle since the last time I was there. But I'm going to go ahead and land, and we should be pretty much done with this check ride and good to go from there. Hey, so everything's all set and done, and sure enough, we've passed our check ride, monitored by On Air. So everything was hunky-dory, just a quick flight out and up and around. So yeah, we're pretty much ready to go. We now are able to get into the 930 and pretty much do whatever we want to do. So let me really quickly go to the job market. Now, I'm kind of curious as to, gosh, first off, where are we again? I've already forgotten where in the world our aircraft is. We are at KBFI. So let's take a look at KBFI. We're going to go for like a medium trip. Let's take a look and see. Now, I think we still have 5 seats, but our cargo capacity is pretty high up there. So we have a few options here. Some cargo missions that would net us a pretty penny. We also have some medical transport missions. Now, we can't do medical yet. That's going to require, I think, at least 4 more points in the skill tree. So at least 2 more points from level ups. These are within 500 nautical miles. Let's see if we've got anything from out to 500 to 1,000. I wouldn't mind making a medium to long range trip. Now, I'm assuming the longer we go, of course, the more money we're going to earn. And sure enough, we've got a couple of options here. One is executive. Now, executive, we do not currently have the ability to transport passengers. However, if we go over to the skill tree, we should be able to take a look at passenger license here. It's only going to cost 1 skill point. We have 3 to distribute. I'm going to take the first level of passenger license. That's going to let us do things like take this executive mission. If I go ahead and refresh the query, that's going to allow us to take that. So that would be $60,000 to transport someone from KBFI all the way over to KEEO, which is in Colorado. That's a pretty area. In a tiny little airport here. Gosh, did I turn off, by the way? I did turn off small airport. The only reason I try to keep small airports turned off is because not every small airport is in the newest edition of Flight Simulator. So you might get a problem where you buy a cargo mission or you hire a cargo or something and you're unable to land because there's no actual airport there. So this one would be 5 passengers at a total distance of 767 nautical miles. There's also no special conditions. Some of the missions, by the way, if they have a little symbol here, means that they're not going to be available to start for some time. The red indicates that it's almost done. Now, this would actually be a tight one. This means that the mission will expire in 3 hours. I think this means that the mission will be ready to start and leave within like an hour or so. So that would be a pretty short time frame to get. I mean, of course, if you're thinking about something, wow, what? 3 different areas? How would you even be able to do that? Go donate some organs and drop off some surgeons. I would guess that you'd have to take this from different areas. They're all coming from different areas, all to KCXP, which would be interesting. So I'm guessing you'd have to stage aircraft almost at other parts of the country and prepare for this mission to be accepted and then delivered all into KCXP. Either way, it's just interesting to kind of see these different types of missions out there. Medium haul is considered 1,000 to 3,000. Now that's starting to push the limits of our single flight range without taking a stop. That's starting to look at pushing the boundaries. Unfortunately, all of these jobs do have a time constraint. So let's go back to the medium haul. I think we're going to be taking a trip to Colorado. That is, sorry, the short haul. Short haul had this executive mission here. So hang on, is this a different one? Yes, this is a new one. However, this one does also have a time constraint as well. So this executive mission is going to be 60,000. That's a lot of money if you think about how quickly we were able to kind of turn things around and get a rented plane. So I think this is going to be our first mission. 767 is the distance. And again, if we go over to the aircraft itself, we should get a little bit of information about what stats or what the details of this aircraft are. So we have a total distance of 1,260 nautical miles. Payload weight is way above what would 4 passengers would have, even 5 passengers. So more would give us information. I think somewhere we would be able to see information about the aircraft itself. I don't remember how we get that screen. Find jobs, prepare your flight, details. Sorry, there we go. I think details is going to show us things like the exact altitude and maximum cruise and all that kind of stuff. Yes, sure enough. So we know for sure that we are pretty much good to go on fuel, I think, and the range. Yeah, I think we can do this. Let's do it. We have 5 seats. So let's go back to the main screen. We're going to take this executive mission. We're going to go over to the aircraft screen and do the fly now. They've changed the symbol on me, so I'm a little bit behind. But either way, hey, also let's go ahead and go back to the main menu because I do want to go ahead and restart the flight and get all lined up and everything just right. We're going to go ahead and choose to load our passengers first. That tells us where we're at with our weights. We're actually just under our payload weight. And now we're looking at a distance of 767 nautical miles. So now we start to fill up. And thankfully we are still, ooh, this is going to be a little bit tight actually. So at maximum gross weight, oh, we're still really good. We're at 83% capacity for fuel. We're still 300 miles of extra distance. So I think we only need about 30 minutes. I think that's the FAA requirement, is that you always carry 30 minutes of fuel with you. So I'm guessing what, God, how would you do that? 30 minutes of fuel. Math is hard. And I'm guessing we would only need a couple more gallons because I'm doing the math in my head. I couldn't actually explain it if I tried. Let's just try to go with about 800 nautical miles of range. That looks good to me. 63% fuel tanks. We have all of our passengers loaded up. We're going to go ahead and start confirming the flight, and we're going to start setting the flight up in Flight Simulator. So we are picking the TBM 930. Of course, we will change some options here. Like, for example, this is now Flight 5. Okay, so I've got some flight planning ready to go. We've got KBFI here in our from, KEEO at our destination. We will be starting at one of the ramps. I don't think we really need a large ramp to ourselves, but we'll take a medium ramp to load our passengers on. And we're going to be going direct GPS, which is going to be the available option to us because KEEO here, Meeker, does not have any ILS capability. It's a tiny little one runway strip. So we don't have any ILS options. So that is important because if the weather is really bad here, we may have trouble getting to the runway. So that is why whenever we file a flight plan here, it does give us an alternate location that is about 30 to 40 nautical miles away. In theory, this is designed so that if your primary location has trouble with weather and you're unable to land, you should be able to go 30 miles out of your way to try to get to different weather conditions. And then I think you keep going from there. I have no idea. At the end of the day, it depends on your fuel, I suppose. But there we go. Our passengers are loaded up. Our fuel is loaded on board. We have our flight plan from our source, KBFI, to KEEO. And I think everything looks good here. We are on flight number 005. I will be doing live conditions, although I think it's going to grab it from the simulator anyways. And I will start the flight so we can start loading the game. And I think we're pretty much just waiting on the simulator at this point. So I'll be back once the sim loads in. All right. Hey, we're facing the Space Needle, apparently. We can't see it quite yet. It's somewhere up there. Let's see if we can go to third person and see it. No, we can only see... Oh, God. There's a lot going on over here. Game's a little bit buggy, kind of loading in initially, but let's see if we can't connect to our virtual airlines to see if it gives us any kind of a daylight timing. Start tracking the flight. I hope we don't have a night flight. Again, the goal airport, the target airport, is not set up for night flying. Well, we still can make a VOR landing at night. We could look in this information here. If we take a look at KEEO, I believe we should be able to pull up airport data or sky vector. One of these two systems here that would tell us if it operates from sunset to sunrise. Yes, so it does operate from sunset to sunrise, which means it should have lights available. So I guess the real question would be, what's the weather like? So I guess we could even do this. We can go to, what is this, Meeker, Colorado. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to check out the Meeker, Colorado weather. So right now, the 10-day forecast, we'll just go to the Weather Channel. There's your free advertisement for the day, Weather Channel. But if we want to take a look at the hourly here, this should take about 2 to 3 hours or so. I would imagine not a super long flight. Ad blocker is yelling at me, but it should be sunny according to the screen. So we should have pretty good weather. I think we'll stick with the VFR because we should be getting there at some point. And again, I did change my settings where the game in theory should be kind of offset with my current time, because it's in the middle of the night for me in real life, but I guess we're okay. This is cool. It's like a little flashlight mode. I don't know where that came from, but we can go ahead and do a couple things. First things first, we are going to pull up the bar. Now, I'm not going to do the entire sequence again. What I'll do is I'll just get the plane up and running, and I'll come back as I'm taxiing towards the runway. Now, if you guys haven't seen this before, ATIS, by the way, if you have this option on a radio, ATIS is basically weather information. This is where pilots will tune to a radio that explains the weather and the current conditions. At the end of that, it'll normally tell you which version of this report you're listening to. So whenever you talk to the actual ground, for example, it would say, at the end of this entire message, it would say, on contact with controller. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but basically, notify you have information Zulu. So that's basically the Zuluith version, the 26th version of the weather report. And this is going to be, there we go. So we've got information Oscar. So we are going to ask for, if I can go ahead and click over to this screen here, we're going to be looking for a south departure. Although at the end of the day, they're just going to tell us which runway is the active runway.
Ground Odin 005, request taxi for south departure with
We're going to go ahead and also bring up our throttle up a bit, so I think we're pretty much good.
Hold short of runway 32 left using taxiway Alpha Alpha 11. Contact tower on 120.6 when ready.
Okay, friends, so after what seems like the longest taxi in the history of man, we actually were at the complete opposite end of the runway, which is amazing. I'm going to go ahead and tune to the tower real quick and request our takeoff clearance. So I'm going to get this flight underway, and really
at runway 32 left ready for takeoff departure to the south.
Don't want to talk over myself, of course.
Odin 005 cleared for takeoff runway 32 left departure to the south approved.
Awesome. Takeoff clearance is approved to the south. So yeah, this is mostly going to be a night flight because that's just how the timing works out right now. I think once we get closer to the airport there in Colorado, we might get a little bit of daylight, but you know, we're equipped just fine for night flight, and we have all of the appropriate equipment. The weather at our goal airport, our target airport, does seem like it's fine, so we shouldn't have any problems with the VFR landing. And, you know, in the worst case scenario, we still do have our ground radar at the end of the day. So, really quickly, I'm going to glance down, make sure that our flaps are set for takeoff. Everything else looks good. And I believe, let me go ahead and just really quickly switch over to landing lights and full power, and we're pretty much golden. So this is going to be a pretty relaxing flight. It is going to be dark outside, so we're not going to be able to see much, but I do love, and it's almost sometimes a little bit better than the janky, weird graphics that are sometimes in place with Flight Simulator, but I mean, it is so beautiful out there. Well, that's a pretty steep climb. I wonder if my trim was not quite set right, but that's okay. We got up off the ground. Look at it again. Look how fast this thing climbs. It is absolutely crazy. I feel like you could do a diamond takeoff and the Blue Angels basically and just go straight vertical. I am kind of countering some trim a little bit. Well, thanks, friend. I appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge his instruction and apparently open up OneDrive yet again. Acknowledge your instruction. All set to go. Now, we did not fly, we did not file an IFR flight, so we're not going to be tracked during this flight. So it's pretty much just, we're on our own. And if the weather gets bad, if anything happens that makes me feel uncomfortable, I would be able to basically talk to any of the airports or any of the controllers kind of controlling airspace to kind of track my flight, make sure I don't crash into anything awful. But look at that, beautiful downtown Seattle. In fact, you know what? Just for fun, let's do a bit of a really long egress out of our airport over to the south. Let me gonna cut back a little bit on throttle. I'm gonna level out just a smidge so that we don't get too high up, but I do want to make a little pass over downtown Seattle just to show you guys how beautiful this game can be during your night flights. But there we go. Seattle coming alive. Look at that sprawl. Look at that sprawl for miles. For miles. It's also a very hilly city, if you weren't aware. I remember my wife and I came down for a train trip. We got out of the Amtrak station and decided to hike maybe 2 blocks to a car rental place. Yeah, guess what? Straight uphill, my friends. Not the smartest of decisions, but yeah, there we go. That is a beautiful sight. Football stadium, baseball stadium, or baseball field. Looks absolutely gorgeous. A couple of cruise ships parked over there at the pier. Is it wharf? What is the pier? They've got a really famous pier that caught on fire recently, if I remember right. Hashtag oops. No more fires, please, Seattle. Right down under the left wing. I think right over here is the really famous pier, if I remember. But yeah, what a beautiful sight here at night. I'm going to go ahead and pretty much just do autopilot out of here, friends. So I'm going to go ahead and pull back on the throttle just a bit because we are pretty high on torque. And I'm going to start my climb. I will come back a little bit to show you anything about icing, because that is a consideration if you are trying to get your aircraft up to an extreme height. You do want to be careful about icing on the windows, icing in other parts. So we'll take a look at that as we continue to climb. But I'm going to go ahead and turn around south. And we are going to be leaving Seattle for parts farther east. All right, so we are in the middle of our cruise right now. Hey, look at the beautiful skyline right now. It must be a really late sunset. I haven't quite figured out what's going on with my time. It says UTC is 11:50, And I suppose on the Pacific coast, that's -8 UTC. So in theory, it should be about 3 a.m., but I'm not sure what's going on here. But you know what? It's beautiful outside. We can see the stars, and life is good. Now, before we get too high, I do want to take a quick peek at our heat situation. I've not done a lot of stuff up high in a really, really high flight. We definitely want to have the heat to our pitot on because that's going to give us sensor information. I believe inert sep is going to be the inertial separator. I think that goes between the pilot and the engine. I'm not entirely sure. Let's go ahead and throttle back just a notch or two. We are at about 100% on the torque. And I think I'm going to go ahead and just start putting on airframe de-ice, ice light. I'm guessing that's just indicating that we are in de-ice mode. I actually don't know what that would mean. I would assume it's indicating that you're de-icing the plane. Is it getting lighter? Is the sun gonna rise in the west? Which way are we going? Hang on. We are going towards the east, but that would be the north then. But maybe the sun's gonna be rising over the hill. In that case, this might make a little bit more sense that we're closer to dawn than we are in the middle of the night. But like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and turn all the heat stuff on. Windshield heat would be fine. Prop de-ice as well, just to be safe. Now, I don't know if this means that it's almost like a ready light, so it'll keep green as it's heating, and then when it's no longer necessary, the light turns off. Maybe that's what's going to happen, but maybe we'll see more lights on as we get higher and higher up. Of course, we would be maybe cranking the heat a little bit up for both our pilot and passengers who are comfortable back here. Is there like a light? You can do like an access light, turn off that. Maybe just dim everything a little bit. Here, guys, we'll turn off the cabin lights. You all have a nice rest back there, my invisible passengers. One day, some mod or flight simulator is going to add passengers inside of your aircraft, and it's going to blow everyone's mind. We are trying to get up to a pretty comfortable cruise altitude. Again, the TBM 930 excels at higher altitudes. So as we get closer and closer to 31,000 feet, which is the comfortable cruise ceiling for the TBM 930, the more fuel efficient we're going to be. Now, fuel efficiency, by the way, is going to be measured down here. So GPH is gallons per hour. So that's how much we're going to consume. It tells us that we're going to be about 3 hours and 28 minutes. However, we are climbing, so our overall speed is much less, right? We are doing a pretty steep climb right now. Hopefully, I mean, maybe this is too short of a trip to worry about getting up to as high as I want. But once you're up really, really high, you can almost hit, I think, upwards of like 320 either knots or is it KT? There's two different measurements of speed. One is like airspeed, and I think the other one is airspeed over ground. So if you have a tailwind, for example, you'll be getting a little bit boost to your speed over ground, something like that. Maybe that's what TAS is. I'll have to brush up on some of my old flying acronyms. My apologies to you guys who are super with it in terms of our flight sims out there. I'm happy to learn, my friends. Happy to learn. All right, so we have reached our cruising altitude of 31,000 feet. Everything is tiny and ant-like. Look at that beautiful sky. Hopefully, this is a, what, 2-hour flight, maybe an hour and a half long. We may not be able to get to see dawn, but it is still absolutely gorgeous up here. You get a nice mix. You get like the starry sky kind of effect, although that even looks like a pretty poor texture wall. So at some point, we will start to get some really amazing ultra high definition texture packs that are designed to basically break your computer. Let's see how things look outside the aircraft. That looks fantastic. I really enjoy seeing the little puddles of civilization as we fly around the world. I don't think there's any points of interest right now, although we might just be so high up that the game's like, no, you don't care, do you? Let's see, where are we near? Can I zoom in just to take a quick peek real fast? ELNKYKM. This looks like we are starting to get into, would this be Nevada? I don't have any state boundaries, so I'm going to struggle a little bit. We were in Washington State, so I guess this little piping part would be Idaho. So we might actually be moving into Idaho. Oregon, of course, would stretch over in this direction, and then California. No, California would be much farther south, along with Nevada. Either way, though, we're looking pretty good. Okay, sorry about that. So my knowledge has been fixed. So TAS is our true airspeed, and I believe this is measured with what basically the molecules that are passing over the wing are measured. And so it's kind of a matter of like how much wind resistance we have up here versus how much we'd have farther down below. So basically, we're getting less resistance at this altitude, not a ton more, but we're going to be 20% faster than we would be over ground. So our ground speed is showing as 327 knots. Our true airspeed is showing as 326. 362 would be flying. And our flight is going to last 2 hours. Now, this is interesting, though. So gallons per hour currently is about 59. I wonder if we should throttle back to about 55 or so. See if that makes a huge difference. So before we do this, we're at 2 hours and 6 minutes. So if we were to throttle back to, say, a GPH of maybe 55, how much would that change our overall flight time? And I'm wondering if our fuel estimate would improve the longer we go at this altitude. Because currently it says 54. In theory, wouldn't we use 55 gallons in the first hour, and then we'd come down a notch? Maybe I didn't do my climb as efficient as I should have. But hey, we all learn a little bit, right? And if worse comes to worse, we can always stop and refuel at an airport in between Colorado and us. But I guess from here, I'm just going to go ahead and just cruise. We don't have any issues coming up. A little hard to see, of course. Unfortunately, the night flight situation is going on strong, so I can't really show too much other than little splotches of light to you. But if I get a beautiful sunrise, I'll come back. Otherwise, I'll jump back into the video as we approach Colorado. Look at the little weird green reflection there. As we approach Colorado, I'll come back and we'll take care of our descent into our, I don't even know what town that was. Whatever airport in Colorado we're going to. That'll be our target. Okay, friends, so we are sitting here at 31,000 feet. Life is good. We're cruising along. I think we're starting to approach some hills and mountains there, as you can see on our ground radar in front of us. And we have a beautiful skyline that is just about ready for dawn. So hopefully we should maybe if we probably another hour and 46 minutes, probably as we get a little bit closer to the end of the flight, we might be able to see a little bit of a sunrise, which would be just absolutely perfect. So far, no icing issues on the aircraft. I have been keeping an eye out on the windows, which is, I mean, I think by and large, this is doing it all on its own. The de-icing. I don't know if I should have inertial separator on or not. Normally, the game will yell at you whenever you need to, you know, turn anything on. Oh, hey, sorry, guys. I'll tell you what. You turn that airflow towards the, can I not do it? There we go. Let's just, on your feet. Stay nice and toasty. But yeah, we are cruising really, really quickly right now. Now, I did a little Googling because I wasn't really sure what TAS meant and all these different things. So you may feel like we're going slower right now because 194 knots doesn't seem all that fast, when in reality, our true airspeed is 321 knots and our ground speed is 320 knots. That's measured by the GPS and other instruments. Now, from what I understand, the true airspeed basically is measured by how much airflow is passing over the wing. And I think it's a matter of you actually wind up having to go faster at a higher altitude because the molecules of the air, yeah, you didn't expect a science lesson in your Let's Play, did you? The molecules in the air basically are fewer, so you have to go faster in order to create that lift, which counters gravity. Boom. Science. And it wasn't good science. It was like sketchy science that I learned from a Stack Exchange site. So there we go. But we are so far about an hour and 43 minutes away from our destination. So far, everything's looking good. The GPH, I've throttled back a bit until we're at about 55 GPH. Now, in theory, we use 55 gallons per hour, right? Don't we have 60? Oh, my math was so backwards. I was like, if we use 55 gallons per hour and we only have 65 gallons, we're going to run out of fuel. Guess what? There's 65 in both tanks, right? We are fine. So I guess what we'll do is I'm going to probably just speed up things a little bit until maybe the sun comes up. What a beautiful color. Look at that skyline. You know, I've never done a dawn flight, and that is beautiful. Very, very pretty. I'm digging it. I'm digging it. So far, no other issues in terms of weather, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with the flight. keeping an eye out on the weather here and there. If anything looks weird, I'll talk to air traffic control. I'm sure they'll be able to let me know what's going on. Of course, they're very intelligent folks over there, wherever we happen to be. What are we over? God, stupid OneDrive. We're near Seattle Center. So if we had to be IFR tracked, Seattle would take care of us. But I'll go ahead and fast forward until we're a little bit closer to Colorado. As in life, all good things do come to an end, and this flight is going to be one of them. We're only about 30 minutes out of our target destination. I may have left the descent a little bit too long, but we should be able to afford a pretty steep descent. So I'm going to go ahead and start giving some changes to the autopilot. Now, if I remember correctly, the airport that we're going to, in fact, if we take a look over at I guess AirNav would do it too, right? Do we see any kind of directional information here? I guess we could just estimate it from the runway numbers. We have runway what and what? I actually can't tell. I don't know. Let's go back over to on-air company manager. So yeah, there we go. We've got pretty much a northeast southwest type of runway. So what I'll probably do, and can we estimate anything about elevation here? It looks relatively flat. So why don't we do a northern approach? And I'm going to basically take our current heading, because we are locked on basically to a direct GPS course. If I press the heading button, that's going to align our heading bug there, the blue thing, with our current heading. I'm going to go about 3 or so degrees off to the left. Change our, I don't know if I had bank on there. I'm going to change our navigation to heading instead of nav hold. And we're going to go ahead and start decreasing our overall target altitude. I'm going to go ahead and just give this a notch real quick. Vertical speed, we're going to start descending pretty quickly. 2,000 feet per minute. We've got about 27 minutes left. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit steep, but we should be fine. We'll be fine, right? I'm sure we'll be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and mess with some altitude settings. I'm going to give us a little bit below 10,000 feet and kind of see where we are in terms of where the descent ends up. But otherwise, this has been a really calm flight. So from here, folks, you know, with these videos, I really wanted to show you what this type of virtual airline was capable of doing. You know, beyond that, I'm not sure how much you'd enjoy more videos. Maybe I could, you know, keep doing this in the off time just for fun. This is kind of what I do anyways, just to, I actually will probably do another flight editing this video. I'll just get up there and fly again because it's really relaxing to have in the background. But you know, let me know what you want to see. Do you want to see videos of certain areas? Do you want to see challenging flights? I think a fun flight would be something in heavy IFR conditions, so very socked in with rain and fog and having to rely on an ILS flight. Maybe we'll try to get a little bit more technical and immersive and focus on using the GPS more. That'd be definitely doable as well. And of course, we have a plethora of additional aircraft available to us, right? So we have the King Air 350, that would be an option. The Cessna Citation, which is a passenger jet, would be an option. And of course, we have the top of the line, tip of the spear, the Airbus 320 and the 747 from Boeing. So either of those would be an option. I don't know if I'm ready to move into the Boeing seat just yet, mostly because I don't know how much fun hitting every single button is for me. So, and I really don't understand their, is it cars, iCars, F-cars? There's a system basically. I should also go ahead and pull back our power. I kind of forgot to do that. I'm going to go ahead and bring our power back quite a bit so we don't overspeed on our steep descent here. But there is a little system for most big passenger liners. It's a little keyboard and display there that has their company information and flight information and all sorts of stuff that I just don't really know how to handle yet. So maybe when there's some good tutorials out there for the newer flight simulator models, I will dive into it. But I bet the Citation, which is the twin engine, kind of a passenger jet, would be the most, the most advanced I think I'd be comfortable doing. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and just let this flight continue. I'll pick this up on landing. And yeah, we'll be back right as we're lined up and ready to go. Okay, campers, I think we are ready to go ahead and turn into the airport. Probably a little bit past the turn-in point, but we should be okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn right to a heading of probably 210. I don't quite remember where the runway number was. Let me pop really quick back over to On-Air Company Manager. Runway 21, yes. So in fact, 210 should be the course that we set, and I will do that. Now remember, we are in Colorado, so the fact that we were 30,000 feet up in the air didn't necessarily mean we had to come all the way down to zero, because we are really, really high up here. One other thing I could have looked at was the elevation of the airport itself. So the airport is actually up at 6,400 feet. So that takes 6,400 feet out of our actual altitude. And I don't know what the altimeter is, although I could and should have already probably picked up some ATIS information. Is it ATIS? ATIS? Probably ATIS. Let's see if we can grab Keogh, Meeker Airport. Let's go ahead and tune to automated weather to get the barometer information and anything else. And I will also keep an eye out for said airport. All right, so altimeter 12992, which is fine. And I'm going to go ahead and tune to the generic traffic. This is not a manned airport, so therefore we're just going to announce ourselves and tell them that we're coming in on runway 21, and our position is, let's see, runway full stop landing. And we'll just announce where our position is. I think I have to cross over just a little bit more in order to pick up this airport runway. As you can kind of see, you can just start to see the little graphic on the screen. So just over or under this mountain should be, is it this one right here? Am I like really high up? Is it right underneath me? Let's see if we can zoom in third person. No, we'll keep it real. I'll tell you what, we'll keep it real. Let's just pop our face up over the dashboard here. And see if we can find, oh, hi, there's the, I think that's the runway right down there. So I'm a little high still. So I'll tell you what, we're going to cut back on power, deploy some flaps. I'm going to go ahead and take us off autopilot. Reset my camera just a bit. And I'm going to trim for a bit of a dive. Not like fighter dive. We can stand probably like a 10 degree dive without losing our minds too much. I actually don't know. What is the maximum angle of attack on a general aviation aircraft? Is it whatever is within constraints, perhaps? I have no idea, but I'm fairly certain, yes, what we're looking at right there is the airport. Now I'm going to point a little bit over to the right so we can kind of pick up the runway. But it's interesting. It comes out right where, like right, oh, hi, we're really zoomed in here. Right beyond this mountainside. So it wasn't the best of locations. You almost have to either come in through that gap or kind of come over the ridgeline and then kind of dive straight down. But I think there was a little town there, wasn't there? Like we saw a little town in the distance as well. Yeah, we shouldn't have any problems with this. I am a little bit steep right now, so I'm going to go ahead and throttle back again. But I think we're going to be just fine. Let me go ahead and speed up just a bit, and I'll be a little bit closer to the runway. Okay, so we are just getting lined up a little bit with the runway. I'm getting fussed at because I don't have my landing gear out. Now, I'm not a huge fan of advocating diving towards the airport like this. I should have been lined up way before this. And if I had any kind of a glide scope, it would basically be saying, you are a bad pilot. Shame on you for doing such drastic measures. But you know what? I give myself a little bit of leeway because I haven't been playing a lot of Flight Simulator lately. So we'll just say that, you know what? We're having an off day. Completely forgot to tell people that we were on final. So here's to hoping that there is nobody like right behind me. I don't think there is, but you never know, right? You never know. Let me go ahead and trim up a little bit. This is a pretty long runway, so I'm not really worried about hitting the hash marks or anything. I'm just going to go ahead and straighten out, pick up the glide scope, and we should be... This is a very... It's like a freshly paved runway in the middle of... It's like a brand new airport. It looks darker than most airports actually would be. Let me go ahead and just give no more power, cut the power out. coast in here. Where's the freaking taxiway at? Is there even an area for general aviation? Am I one lower? I think I'm one too low on my simulation rate. That or this plane just drifts like a feather when it gets really low altitude or really low speed. Look at that. Beautiful. Flare just a notch or two. And the smoothest. And the smoothest. And I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for that impact that's never going to come. Logged. There we go.
Landed at Kilo Echo Echo
Good
Oscar.
stuff.
Meeker.
Little apartment complex over there. Well, friends, welcome to Meeker, Colorado. I have no idea where Meeker is, but it seems pretty here. Beautiful views, beautiful weather. I'm sure there are beautiful people as well. So I'm going to go ahead and taxi over to General Aviation Parking, friends. Thanks so much for joining me for this video. As I said before, I did really mostly want to, with a couple of videos, show you the power of virtual airlines. Maybe, if everyone's really lucky, if I make a lot of money, I might be able to afford to hire some pilots soon. So maybe we'll have an episode dedicated to the on-air, kind of the company management side of the game, where you're actually able to hire employees and you're able to send them from point A to point B. But I don't really want to turn it into a tutorial so much, because I think there already are some decent ones out there. Wow, this thing does not want to turn once we lose a little bit of speed. We're fine. What's a little bit of scrub brush between friends, right? Thanks so much for joining me, friends, for this video and the last video. I hope you did enjoy this. I will try to bring back some additional flight simulator videos once we get into maybe different planes, like I said, or different challenges. So thanks so much, friends, as always, for your support. I hope you enjoyed the videos, and as always, fly safe, and I'll see you next time.